This is the part 3 of the 12th Conference on National Scenic and Historic Trails with your guest speakers Steve Dudley and Mike Dawson.
So, those of you, many of you here in this room, have a history. And maybe some of you in your organizations are evolving in your own level of activity on behalf of your trail. And you have to ask yourself, where are we at in that growth period? And what kind of board do we need? I want Mike to tell you a little bit about the story of the Pacific Crest Trail Association, because they're further along that maturation process than we are. And they're heavily on the side of governance. And so maybe, Mike, you can spend a few minutes talking about the history there.
So, in my career in trails, I've worked with 3 trails organizations, and I want to talk a little bit about my experience with boards and and how organizations are organized, and use some of those situations as examples. The managing board that Steve talks about. How far can you go with a managing board? I think probably it is safe to say that within the National Trail System, that the farthest that I have ever seen that go is with the Appalachian Trail Conference, now Conservancy. Is anybody here from ATC? Good. I can talk about them with impunity. So when I worked for ATC, they had a managing board. When I first went to work for them, the board was relatively ineffectual. It is where trail maintaining clubs sent their old retired presidents who are no longer effective in their organization to get them out of their hair. And so you had an organization that was filled with people who were not really engaged, but every one of them got there from decades of commitment to working on the trail. Every single member of the board, 24 members in the board, big group. Every single person in the room got there by joining a local trail club, going out on work hikes, getting involved in the club, getting on a committee in the club, becoming the club trail supervisor, eventually ending up the president of the club, and on the club's board, and so forth through time, and eventually ended up on the Appalachian Trail Conference board. And in about a 10-year period, that board became the strongest managing board I have ever seen anywhere. Slowly but surely, we, as part and parcel of our building of a staff at the local level, the organization all of a sudden had staff members working with all these people in all these clubs. And they could see all the talent. This guy over here really knows how, not only is committed to the trail, has spent years working on the trail physically, but they also understand how to motivate people. They understand how to deal with the business aspects of managing this big organization. And, we started to be able to reach into those organizations and pull people out into the management of the Appalachian Trail Conference, who are very, very, very competent. But still, every person in the room was there because they had invested years digging side hill, cutting brush, running trail crews. So, the Appalachian Trail Conference, which is now the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, doesn't have a board like that anymore. It all completely changed, 8 years ago. When I came to the Pacific Crest Trail Association, they were much in the situation that Steve talked about, that they were down to seven board members, and some of the board members were really engaged and others not so much. And we went through a strategic planning process. Boy, does that sound boring. It took us 2 years. But, you know, it was really worth it because of some things that Steve talked about. We really talked about what our mission was. What was this organization about? What were we there for? We talked about a vision of our organization, this kind of future. We described the organization as we wanted it to be in the future, not how it was now. And we even went through a process of talking about values of our organization. How do we do our business? I mean, we have values like integrity. You really start to talk about not only what you want to accomplish, but how you want to accomplish it, how everybody's going to do their work, and on to goals and benchmarks of how we're going to get places. And generally, within our organization, all of our goals and even our vision is split into two things. We want this world-class trail, fabulous scenery, protected forever. We want to have intact ecosystems that we go through. We want to honor and bring to the public the cultural resources of the areas that we traverse. All physical and all directed at producing a physical result on the ground and providing that to some public out there. And the other half of everything is about the other most important product of all of our organizations, and that is the experience that we provide to people through being involved in our organization. Tying people to the land. Giving people an opportunity to work with their hands on the ground and have a physical result. So many of us work in front of one of those in an office. We never produce anything physical. So here's a chance to do that. The ability to affect the protection of important resources, not for us, but for the public, and not for our generation, but for generations to come. So we have goals and parts of our mission that all have to do with the trail. And we have goals and parts of our mission that have to do with people, what we're doing for people. So PCGS Board, how many people in here actually physically have physically worked on the trail? Let's see hands. Yeah, that's what I was hoping. So you're all into the effective tool to get the work done, right? The worst thing you can do is get out on crew to dig side hill, and you don't have what you need as far as the physical tool to do the work in the most efficient way. It really stinks. So the board is the same way. Steve talked about figuring out what the role of the board is. What are they going to accomplish? And then you have to put people on the board who can accomplish what you want.
The 12th Conference on National Scenic and Historic Trails is brought to you by the Bureau of Land Management, the National Park Service, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the National Forest Service.